Dear comrades, good evening. Today, we will conduct our next meeting. At the last meeting, the main focus was on fulfilling tasks in the zones of responsibility of the Western and Southern groups of forces. Regarding the Western group of forces, we talked about the situation overall in the zone of responsibility and the developments around the city of Kupyansk. As for the Southern group of forces, the commander reported on the situation in his zone of responsibility and on the combat operations in and around the city of Seversk. As for the Center and Eastern group of forces, here as well as along the entire combat line, the initiative is fully in the hands of our armed forces, and today we will continue our work. We will discuss in more detail the situation in the zones of responsibility of your groupings. Of course, first of all, I would like to receive information about the situation in the city of Krasnoarmeysk and how you see the further development of the situation in this area. As for the Eastern group of forces, I know the pace at which your troops are moving in the designated direction. Today, we have reached the city of Huliaipole, and naturally, I would like to hear about the developments in and around Huliaipole. But most importantly, what you propose to do in your zone of responsibility to ensure that the tasks assigned to your grouping are accomplished most effectively. At the last meeting, the Chief of the General Staff reported on the results of task completion in all directions, including these directions. The commander of the troops groupings will give more detailed information about the situation's development in your responsibility zones.
Comrade Supreme Commander-in-Chief, in accordance with the concept of the special military operation, the troops of the joint group of forces are advancing on a wide front. The command of the armed forces of Ukraine continues its attempts to deadlock its encircled groupings on the Kupyansk and Krasnoarmeysk directions and seeks to halt our advances on the Krasnoarmeysk, Severodonetsk, Dnipropetrovsk, and Zaporizhzhia directions. The northern group of forces today completed the liberation of the city of Volchansk. Furthermore, in establishing a security zone in the border regions of the Sumy and Kharkov regions of Ukraine, an additional 3 localities came under our control in November. These are Sinelnikovo, Tsygelno, and Dvyrichansko. The units and troops of the Western group of forces have focused their main efforts on the Krasnoarmeysk direction and the left bank of the Oskol River to defeat the encircled grouping after the capture of Kupyansk. They continue to tighten the ring to eliminate the encircled grouping, numbering approximately 15 battalions.
Last time, you mentioned, and I asked then, on the left bank of the Oskol River, can the enemy not escape south along the bank?
Oh, he cannot, because south of this encircled enemy grouping, there is dense defense by the 1st Tank Army along the entire left bank. The defense is some 17 kilometers southward. An offensive is also developing on the Rupsovsk and Krasnoarmeysk directions of the Western Group. The assault units of the Western Group of forces have entered Krasnoarmeysk and are currently fighting in the southeastern and eastern parts of the city. Street fighting continues in Drobyshevo and Yerevaia. This is in the Krasnoarmeysk direction. The Southern Group of forces advances in the northern part of the Donetsk People's Republic. In the Seversk direction, active combat operations have liberated the localities of Zvanovka, Varshukovka, and Petrovsko. In Seversk itself, assault units of the Third Army are engaged in street battles and are expanding control zones in the northeast and southern areas of the city, liberating over 100 buildings daily. In the Kramatorsk-Druzhkovka direction, the Southern Group, the localities of Ivanopol have been liberated, and street battles continue in Konstantinovka. The southeastern and eastern parts of the city of Konstantinovka have come under our control, encompassing more than 30% of the total number of buildings in Konstantinovka. The center group liberated the city of Krasnoarmeysk and continues to eliminate enemy units in Dimitrov. Additionally, part of the grouping's forces is successfully advancing into the Dnipropetrovsk region. The eastern group of forces continues to advance at a fast pace in the western direction, expanding the control zone in the Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions. The Dnieper group of forces troops are advancing in the Zaporizhzhia direction, having encircled the locality of Stepnogorsk. Fighting is ongoing to seize Primorsk. In addition, the General Staff's plan continues with the retaliatory mass strikes on Ukraine's military-industrial facilities and energy infrastructure supporting them. Comrade Supreme Commander-in-Chief, the units and formations of the joint group of forces will continue active offensive actions to fully liberate Donbass. The report is over.
In general, we observe that the joint group forces are increasing pressure along the entire front line. In recent days, control has indeed been established over several major settlements, which are of significant importance for further actions to liberate the entire territory, including those still under enemy control. During our meeting on October 25th, Valeri Solodchuk, commander of the Center Group of Forces, reported that the armed forces of Ukraine had been surrounded in the Krasnoarmeysk Dimitrov agglomeration. Valeri Solodchuk, did I understand the Chief of the General Staff correctly that the city of Krasnoarmeysk is in our hands? Yes. Please report. Troops of the Center Group continue to carry out tasks to defeat the enemy in the Dnipropetrovsk direction in accordance with the plan approved by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation. In the Krasnoarmeysk direction, the Second Army, with the forces of the 30th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade, the 506th, 439th and 1435th Motorized Rifle Regiments of the 27th Guards Motorized Rifle Division, completed the liberation of the city of Krasnoarmeysk. Currently, the search and destruction of the remnants of small enemy groups attempting to hide within the city limits is underway. The destruction of enemy formations in Dimitrov continues. The southern part of the city has been completely liberated. Mopping up operations are underway. The enemy group in the northern part is securely blocked. Attempts to break out or unblock this group have not been successful for the enemy. It is estimated that between 1,500 and 2,000 people are blocked in the northern part of the city. The enemy is making repeated attempts to unblock itself and is also trying to break out of the city. However, these attempts have been unsuccessful, all attacks have been repelled, and no breakthrough has been allowed. In accordance with your instructions, the group of troops is taking measures to create conditions for the cessation of resistance and the surrender of Ukrainian armed forces personnel. At the same time, the enemy command is doing everything possible to prevent this. According to Ukrainian soldiers who laid down their arms, they are forbidden from surrendering under threat of execution and reprisals against their families and loved ones. There have also been repeated incidents of Ukrainian FPV drones destroying Ukrainian armed forces soldiers, who approached Russian positions with their hands raised. In addition, an offensive continues to develop on the left flank in the direction of Novopavlovka, which is the main enemy defense hub in this direction. Russian troops are encircling the enemy from the southwest, west, northwest, and east of the settlement with the aim of surrounding it. Comrade Supreme Commander-in-Chief, the Center Group of Forces continues to conduct offensive operations in all directions. All tasks assigned to the formations and military units will be completed. The report is over. I will say more about this, but right now I want to thank you for the results achieved in Krasnoarmeysk. And to you, the entire command, and personally in the subgrouping. And, of course, our servicemen who are performing these combat tasks. This is an important direction. We all understand how important it is. And this will ensure progressive resolution of all the main tasks that stand before us and were initially set at the start of the special military operation. Thank you.
Comrade Commander-in-Chief, the Vostok Group, according to the plan of the special military operation, carries out the tasks in the Zaporizhzhia direction. The military units are actively moving to the south of the Dnipropetrovsk region and the eastern part of the Zaporizhzhia region. The offensive of the 5th, 29th and 36th armies is being carried out on the wide front. Today, the 37th Separate Reconnaissance Brigade of the 36th Army has completed the liberation of the settlement of Dnipropetrovsk. In the last week, the new Zaporizhzhia and Tishina Zaporizhzhia region as well as the Tishina Tradno in the Dnipropetrovsk region have been liberated. Since November 1st, more than 360 square kilometers of the territory of these regions, 7 settlements in the Dnipropetrovsk region and 12 in the Zaporizhzhia region have been liberated. At present, the units of the 29th and 36th armies are expanding the control zone on the eastern bank of the Gaichuan River. In addition, the units of the 5th Army entered the settlement of Huliaipole yesterday, fortified on its outskirts, and are conducting street fighting to destroy the formations of the Ukrainian armed forces in the settlement. The offensive in this direction continues. Comrade Commander-in-Chief, the destruction and formation of the enemy in the Zaporizhzhia direction is carried out in accordance with the plan approved by the General Headquarters of the Russian Armed Forces. All the tasks before the troops of the Vostok Group will be carried out.
What do you see in the further development of the situation?
In the future, Comrade Commander-in-Chief, the key will be the destruction of the enemy on the left bank of the Gaichuan River to continue the offensive further in the western direction on the borders of the Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions, as well as the occupation of the Huliaipole defensive area in the center of the city of Huliaipole.
Andrei Ivaniev, your troops are moving at a pace that guarantees the execution of all the tasks ahead of us. I mean that at such a pace of our offensive, the enemy, of course, is not able to react properly. It corresponds to reality. Yes. The Nationalist Battalion does not participate. They refuse this task. Here, Again, those who are called up, mobilized to perform the task, it can be seen that people have recently been called up, people who have not been trained, they go to the kill in the direction of Krasnoarmeysk. Tens and hundreds die there. Such an attitude, of course, I think, it can be seen, it will continue for now, but this is just the extermination of its own people. Our officers are watching the bullets, right? This is observed by our officers, our soldiers, and Ukrainian soldiers. Clearly, but this is the tragedy of the Ukrainian people, linked to criminal policy. This is the thieving junta that seized power in Kiev. Dear comrades, the armed forces of the Russian Federation confidently hold the initiative and continue to carry out the tasks of the special military operation. The advance of the Russian troops is proceeding practically in all directions. It can also be stated that the destruction of enemy formations, surrounded on the left bank of the Oskol River, is proceeding systematically. I also note the effective actions of the formations and military units of the center group in liberating the city of Krasnoarmeysk. Without a doubt, one cannot fail to mention the successes of the assault units of the East Group operating in the Zaporizhzhia direction. The pace of advancement of formations and military units in this direction, as has already been mentioned, is impressive. Please convey words of gratitude to all the personnel of the groupings and the command staff for this difficult but very important work for our country. Thank you. The commanding officers of the troop groupings need to continue carrying out tasks in strict accordance with the plan of the special military operation. And, as has already been mentioned, the Ministry of Defense and the General Staff need to think about supplying the troops in the upcoming winter period.